This is Again for the First Time with your host, Darren Redmond.
Hello, everybody. This is Darren Redmond with the Again for the First Time podcast, and I should call it Again for the Second Time, as I welcome back what I think to be one of the brightest, freshest, unique, pointed, structurally on point journalists out there, reporters that are out there. Simon Ateba is my guest again. He's the Chief White House Correspondent at Today News Africa in Washington. And you've seen him out there asking the tough questions. The resiliency that Simon shows is amazing. Simon, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Darren. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here. I like the first time I came here. I think that was last year or several months ago, and I appreciate you extending an invitation to me this time again.
Thank you very much. Let's just kind of jump into it. First of all, what is your process? Meaning, you are so active in so many different places, informing the public, informing people like myself. And we know that those seats in the White House briefing room are not easy to get. Tell us a little bit that you can about your process and your way of getting things done.
Yeah, so it's a busy time. The 2024 elections are just 5 months away. And so everything right now, I'm trying to focus on the elections, because we change so many things, not just for the US, but for relationships between the US and the international community, including Africa. And so I spend some time in the White House. It's become difficult for me because they took my hard pass away, and I have to apply for day passes every time I go to the White House. And someone has to escort me in. And so sometimes they leave me at the gate for an hour. And
ridiculous.
And they see me from inside, and the other reporter who don't actually have any engagement, no one read their stories, and they come there, they say hi. Many of them don't actually say hi, and I wait there for an hour. And then they take me inside, and I raise my hand, and usually they don't call on me. I send them an email, they don't respond. But understand that when you do your job, if you really do your job, you ask the key questions that the American people really care about. They try to sideline you, they try to paint you as a very incompetent journalist. And they try to do that, but every single person who reads me daily understand that was a bloody lie. I'm good at what I do. I use many tools. I use many sources. I receive many statements from different people. I attend press briefings, many of them online. I watch a lot of TV. I watch shows to really expand my knowledge. Every day I watch maybe 3 to 4 or sometimes 7 shows to understand what they think about the issues. And then I read books. I read a book every single day. So I'm happy doing what I'm doing, but for you to be on top of your game, you need to widen your perspective, listen to different people, because you don't have all the knowledge. And so that's my process.
The thing that amazes me, I understand the cloak and dagger censorship that is being perpetrated on you. It has happened forever in this country and will continue to happen on either side, different times. You are a journalist who doesn't just represent a paper, it doesn't just represent a country, a region. In a lot of ways, you represent a continent, and I'll get on my soapbox because this is the way I feel when we've talked before, that is totally used only for resources when they could find it, and then abandoned and left. I think it is disgusting what is happening to people like yourself who really are the conduit to the marginalized, to the people that have no voice. I mean, and I know you do, but I need to ask this question. Do you understand the important role that you play to the people who really have no other place but you to try to find out these answers?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for saying that. And that's exactly the truth. A few weeks ago, the president of Kenya was hosted by President Biden at the White House. They didn't actually allow me to attend. I sent them an email, they didn't respond. And this happening at the time when China and Russia, they're expanding in Africa, they're buying everything, they're buying roads, buying bridges, they're actually buying Africa and driving out the US. What we tried to do at our publication, Today News Africa, was to strengthen ties between the US and Africa. Because no one was really focusing on them, on those ties, and we tried to see how the US and Africa are, improving their relation, their trade relations, diplomatic relations, and all kinds of relations. And they began to attack me even more than the Chinese. They began to attack me even more than the Russians. And so it's unfortunate, but it shows you how neglected and how out of touch the Biden administration is when it comes to foreign policy. 0.1% of Africans will ever make it to the US. 99.9% of them will never get a visa to come to the US. They can't come, they can't get visa, they don't have money, they can't fly. And even those who eventually come here, none of them can get to the White House. None of them has, very few, maybe 0.1% of the people. And so I end up being the voice of Africa. And what I realize is people don't like that. Because there's a lot of hypocrisy. People don't actually do the job they say they do. It's about grabbing resources and grabbing vote at the UN General Assembly. Grabbing is not a symbiotic relationship where, give and take. And so that hypocrisy and that lie, those lies, that's what I'm being sidelined at the White House while doing my job. And now they're attacking me because some of them believe that I'm siding with President Trump, and because the election is coming, and because I reach 500 million views on my X every month, and they begin to realize that that's such a danger. If someone can reach 500 million views on X, it means that they can influence people even in the US. And now they're in my account, and so it's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, but the thing that I love and I'd like to bring to people's attention, and most people realize it because we're having this discussion, is they're not stopping you. That you are, and it's not even me meaning you. If I can speak for you, it's not even just assignment at Ateba against the U.S. Power structure. It's I'm doing my job.
Yes.
And you know what? Long-term goals beat short-term gains. I truly believe that you'll be recognized positively when all of this settles down. Before I moved from California out here to Cape Cod, my priest where I worked, the school I worked in, was from the Congo. And we would have many conversations. It's very similar to kind of the stuff we're talking about right now. Posing for the picture while the hand is in the wallet, That's all I'll say. That's your metaphor I'll use.
Yeah.
So let's talk about because I know you had a post about this. Steve Bannon back in jail, huh? Or in jail.
Yeah, and I did a story today. I did a post today where I showed just 10 examples of people on both sides of the government, mainly Democrats who have refused to testify in Congress. None of them were tried, none. But, you have Steve Bannon, who is going to prison on the 1st of July for 4 months. And they made sure that he comes out maybe on the 1st of November,
Mhm.
4 days, 4 days ahead of the presidential election when he can't do anything because the vote will start in September, I think. You know, the main ballot will start, so the American people will start voting in September. And so when he comes out on the 1st of November, millions of people have already cast their vote, and he won't be there to do his job. Mr. Navarro is also in prison for 4 months. And so I checked, I looked back like decades and decades and decades ago, who has gone to prison? None.
Yeah.
Eric Holder, he's there, who used to be the Attorney General during the Obama administration. He refused to comply, he was found in contempt. He's not in prison. Actually, he just granted an interview on MSNBC. He's granting interviews everywhere. And so it has nothing to do with Democrats or Republicans. It has to do with Trump.
Yep.
So the people close to President Trump, they're trying to take all of them out before the election. At the same time, he's been convicted for what many people see as no crime. And so it's actually sad for someone who was born in Africa. We look up to the US. We see the US as this beacon of, democracy, the rule of law, the respect for the Constitution. And now we see the US, the former president being tried for bogus charges. We see what many people call lawfare. See the weaponization of the justice system against some people, especially people who are pro-Trump. And we see that going back decades and decades, no one has ever been imprisoned for contempt of Congress, but only 2 Trump allies have been sent to prison. And so it's unfortunate. I believe that it diminishes the respect that people have about the US. Seeing people here may not understand it. I was born in Africa and I went to a couple of countries. This country is still the best country in the world. We still have freedom and liberty, and you have smart people. We invent and create so many things. But all those things can only be done when you have freedom of speech and freedom of association, when you have that reputation, that respect in the international community, that the US is a country where people respect the rule of law, where the previous administration doesn't go against, where the current administration doesn't weaponize the justice system against the former or previous administration. And it's really unfortunate. And just for those who are watching us, if you remember when President Obama came to power in 2009, while he was campaigning in 2008, he was always saying, no, I will prosecute, because there were the war in Iraq and all those, and there were all this talk about, going after Bush and the people, those who committed crime. But when he became president, he decided not to prosecute anyone. And the reason he did that, because he wasn't Trump. So it's not about Democrat or...
That's what I try to tell people. It's
about just President Trump. When President Trump goes away, do we go back to, the DC, how DC actually works, where they won't prosecute anyone?
What do you think is going to happen with the Hunter Biden laptop situation that's going on right now?
So, the prosecution just rested their case a few minutes ago. How many days?
Yeah, right.
Just
that was quick.
So, because on Monday they were trying to select the jury, and then on Tuesday, so they just spent 3 days, presenting their case, and so they rested their case. And I believe that Hunter Biden will not be found guilty. I believe that
I agree.
He's in Delaware. Some people like Biden there. He's from there. And so at least 1 or 2 or 3 jurors are going to find him not guilty. So they are going to have a mistrial. And President Biden won't have to pardon him. But you know, a lot of people on the left are using that case to say, okay, you see, the president is allowing his own son to be tried, so he's a fair judge, he respects the rule of law. But he knows very well that even if Hunter Biden is convicted, he's going to pardon him.
Yes.
He also understands that he's not going to be convicted. The first lady is in court almost every day. Now she's gone to Paris, but you know, she was in court every day. She will sit down and the jury is seeing her. She brings the power of the presidency into, and so he's not going to be convicted. But all the people who are being tried now, apart from President Trump, are the people who were critical of the Biden administration. And I can cite them. The mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, is being investigated because, you know, he's been criticizing the Biden administration over the migrant situation. The Senator Bob Menendez he's been charged because they want to replace him. The congressman in Texas, a Democrat, also has been charged because he's been critical of the Biden administration over the border crisis. And so, and I can go on and on. What you realize is all those people are people who criticize the Biden administration. So it actually proves that the law is being used against political enemies. People who criticize the Biden administration, they go after them. In my case, when you ask tough questions, they take the hard pass away. You know, we're on the, we're in court, so our case is coming up in maybe next 1 week or 2 weeks at the appeal court in Washington, D.C. I don't know what do we decide, but it's unfortunate what's happening. As I said, most people around the world look up to the US. This is the best country in the world. This is a country where all of us look up to the US. When people are being oppressed somewhere in the world, they look up to the US. When people want to cite the example of democracy and constitution, respect for the rule of law, they look up to the US. But if the US loses that, if we don't have freedom of speech, if we don't have freedom of association, if the current administration goes after the former president, it is going to be something really difficult.
Oh, I agree. I got one last question for you before I let you go. And that is, what do you think, it's just opinion now, the American people are not focused on that they should from a political perspective?
If you can ask the question again.
Sure, yeah, I'll give you mine first, and then we can play off that. I don't think that people realize how food without sounding like tin hat wearing, how quickly food shortages can happen in this country. You know, supply chain, things like that. We saw a little bit of that with COVID. What do you think people in this country are not focused on enough, and they should be?
I think that the main thing in this country right now has to do with the rule of law, the freedom of speech, the freedom of association. Because listen, when you lose all those things, when you lose freedom, when you lose the rule of law, when you lose all those things, what happens is you lose every other thing.
True.
Remember, the US was not always the most powerful country in the world. It used to be in Europe, it used to be Spain. Spain used
absolutely.
It used to be a
True.
They lost a war against England and they lost a war against France. And their empire collapsed. At some point, it became the Dutch Empire. They used to be very powerful.
Mhm.
Actually, most people used to use Dutch. I was born in Cameroon,
Mhm.
and the German they came long before the French, long before the English, and they built, the railway. They colonized the country. People used to speak German in Cameroon, and then they lost the Second World War, the First World War, and the Second World War, and the empire collapsed. And then we had the English people who used to be, and there was even Rome before,
Mhm.
and so when you lose the rule of law, the respect, when people don't have faith in the system, what ends up happening is the empire collapses, and no one talks about trade and inflation, and all those things become secondary because you've lost the most important thing.
I think that is a wonderful and, quite frankly, sobering way to end this discussion, because I do agree with you. That's a great point. Simon, thank you so much for being our guest today. I truly appreciate the work you put in. If you can just let people know about how they can find you. And I know you also have a link up that people support what Simon does. And until we meet again, so if you can just share that with people,
Yeah,
so that'd be great.
most people can just find me on X at
Mhm.
Simon Ateba, or go on LinkedIn and support me if they can. I understand that many people cannot because of the economy. Things are getting worse, but those who can, they should just support me there. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And Simon, please have a great day. And again, try to find some time over the next couple of months. I know you're going to be busy with the election, to get some rest, because we need that all as human beings. Be well, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.